everything you need to know about restricted stock units, plus some examples. Let's do it. Hi everyone, I'm Thatcher Taylor. Welcome back to my classroom. You own a ProPath Financial and a financial planner. I run into RSU or restricted stock unit questions often, so I thought we'd do a little refresher and do some examples on the whiteboard too. We're going to talk about what an RSU is, what happens at vesting, how taxation works, what to do after you vest, and then hopefully the whiteboard examples are going to help clear things up, put a little visual to all the talking that I'm going to be doing. Make sure to watch till the end where we go over some planning opportunities and take some final notes on RSUs. So let's dive into it. So first thing, what are restricted stock units? Essentially, they're a company grant of the company's stock that's going to be there in the form of compensation. You can be granted a big bundle of shares. They're going to be given at certain dates as long as you stay there working long enough or you meet some certain performance requirements. It's like a normal paycheck, but instead of just getting cash delivered to your bank account on direct deposit, you're going to get a big bundle of stock that you're going to be able to make some decisions about. Next, a restricted stock unit is not an option. It's not an incentive stock option. It's not a non-qualified stock option. An option is a chance to buy that stock at a predetermined date. It is not this. On a vesting date, you're going to be given these stocks, this bundle of stocks, and you're going to have to pay taxes on it, and it's going to be a form of compensation, and then you're going to get whatever's left over. One big feature is that they are restricted, so the name actually applies in this case, where there's going to be a vesting schedule. You have to work at your company long enough or meet certain performance requirements, like I mentioned before, to be able to get the stock vested that were granted to you in the very beginning. So let's do a quick example. All right, so really quickly, let's talk about how this vesting schedule works. You work for company XYZ, just got a job. Yeah, you're all excited. Grants 6,000 shares over 4 years. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're gonna do year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Right here, let's just say you're going to get 1,000 shares in year 1 when you meet your time or effort or production requirements. You're going to get 1,000 shares of company stock in the form of a bonus, restricted stock units. Each subsequent year, you're going to get another block and another block and another block. So let's say it's like 1,500, and like 2,000 as long as you meet the time or the production requirements along the way. But as of right now, this is the grant date. On the grant date, you don't own the shares. You just get a promise that you'll get the shares at a future date. You don't have any voting rights. You don't get any dividends for the company stock that's outstanding. You just get granted the opportunity to be given the shares in the future. So what happens at vesting? This is what everyone's been waiting for. So at vesting is when you're going to get the bundle of shares put into your account. On the vesting date, you're going to get the full value stock grant. Full value means you're going to get the full value based on the market price of the company stock on that vesting date. So remember, at the grant date, you were given the amount of shares, like 1,000 shares. On the vesting date is when they take those 1,000 shares and they multiply it by the stock price. Let me show you what that looks like now. All right, so another quick example, we're gonna dive a little bit deeper, what happens with vesting. So remember, there's the grant date, you're just given the option to get the shares as long as you keep working there and you meet your performance standards. Fast forward to the end of year 1, this is vest. This is when they vest. On vesting, you get 1,000 shares. The stock price on that date is $100 per share, which is $100,000. That's what you get in the form of compensation. This is W-2 income, which we'll talk about more. But this is all income taxable to you in the year that it vests. The stock price all could go up and down and do whatever and then land right here. That is this number. It doesn't matter what the stock price has done. It only matters the price it is on the vesting date. So now you own the stock. It belongs to you. Let's talk about taxation. Taxation pretty much occurs at vesting, not at granting. There are some weird rules, but we're not going to talk about those here today. And we're specifically talking about restricted stock units, not restricted stock. So the taxation happens at vest, not at granting. Remember, granting is just a promise. As long as you meet those goals or work there long enough, you get the shares. Your taxable income is the market value of the stock times the share amount on the vesting date. Let me show you what that looks like on the whiteboard. So now we're going to talk about ownership and taxes. So here's what happens when we actually get the shares. Here's what happens on that date. On that date, you're going to get $100,000 worth of shares, essentially. But until Uncle Sam says they want theirs, they're going to do what's called a mandatory withholding. So your company is going to withhold 22%. So they're going to withhold 22% to pay taxes on your behalf, which is good. This is going to help. So after they withhold 22%, you're going to be left with $78,000 or 780 shares. And this is what you're going to own. These are the remaining shares. Now, here's what's important about this. You're paying taxes on $100,000. So this is going on as gross income on your tax return. This is your basis, and is the amount that's not going to be taxed again in the future. So remember, $78,000, because you've already paid taxes. This 22% is going to go to cover, in theory, your portion of taxes due on receiving this amount of money. So the taxes aren't over. Because remember, on that date that you vest, you can keep those shares, you can sell those shares, which we'll go over. So $78,000 is the amount that you get to keep, or 780 shares, based on $100 per share price. But what if this goes up to $120? The difference is $20. And let's say here, 1 year in the future,
one eternity later.
1 year later, you sell all of the shares that you have remaining, 780 shares, for $120 per share. This difference of 100 to 120, this $20, is going to be taxable as long-term capital gains. So 780 shares times 20 equals $56,000. This could be taxable as long-term capital gains. So the taxation of these shares after you get them is not over. You remember, you receive shares, you didn't receive cash. They're just going to hold back shares to pay the taxes, and they're going to give you the remaining 780 shares. So from there, these shares are subject to market fluctuation. Now, we've obviously talked about a lot the taxation, the ownership of the shares, but do note, you do not have to continue to own the shares. Pretty much every company that's involved in restricted stock units gives an employee the capability to sell off the remaining shares even after you pay off taxes. Hanging on to those shares could be a great thing, but then you're exposed to traditional market fluctuations, a lot of volatility. Your company stock could go up, your company stock could go down. An example is one of my clients in 2020 and 2021, although we were having the COVID debacle, their shares were skyrocketing, so they were getting RSUs that were vesting. So we had to come up with very good decisions around how are we going to manage the continuous ownership of these shares? Should we sell them? Should we keep them? What are you seeing on your end? Because what has happened now in 2022 is the stock price has fallen back quite a bit. So before I move on, let's talk about a couple reasons why that would happen. First thing is the increased diversification in your assets. You may love your company and really good things may be on the horizon, but maybe you don't feel comfortable having your stock fluctuating so much, which means your assets are going to be fluctuating a lot. If a lot of your assets are tied to one particular stock of the company you work for because you have a lot of RSUs. So maybe you want to sell off those shares and diversify into a broader portfolio exposed to a lot of different asset classes. Doing something like this really helps promote long-term goals, and not keeping all your eggs in one basket is kind of an age-old thing that we really want to work with when it comes to diversification. Next, maybe you have some things right now or some goals that you need to apply right now. Maybe paying off some debt, maybe some short-term purchases. Maybe there's an opportunity out there. Maybe you want to buy a house. Maybe there's some things that are coming down the pipe, because remember, when those RSUs vest, it's all taxed anyway. It's all taxed and you're creating a basis. So for you to sell the shares right away isn't creating any additional taxable events. Remember that. Once you own the shares and you sell them down the road, they could be worth more, which creates another taxable event. A couple notes that I want to leave with you. These are restricted stock units, not restricted stock. I just want to make that clear. They're cousins, they're very closely related, but today we're talking about the restricted stock units. What I'm specifically telling you this for is the 83B election. Restricted stock units are taxed under a different tax code, a segment within the tax code. So they're not eligible for the 83B election where you can get taxed at a different point in time of holding the shares. And then lastly, I know we've already addressed this, but I really want to nail this home. The under withholding. If you are getting restricted stock units, usually you're at an executive or like a vice president or higher level in the company. Not always, but a lot of times. So what happens is when these restricted stock units hit and you get a big bundle of taxable dollars coming in, you may underpay your taxes even with the mandatory withholding. It's 22% usually, or maybe 37%, depending on how much income you make, usually over $1 million if they're tracking that. So you could be under withholding. That's why planning is extremely important. Please like and subscribe if you like these videos. All new videos will be delivered directly to you on YouTube next time you go onto the app. Please keep watching. The channel keeps growing. I hope you like the new editing and the whiteboard feature. Let me know if you have any questions and make sure to comment below. You can always find me personally at propathfinancial.com. That's my RA's website. If you want to go through some of these planning scenarios, you can always reach out to me directly. Thanks so much. Can't wait to see you again.